What is the number one reason that kids in America go to the doctor? I actually researched this and I found out that the number one reason that kids go to pediatricians is for earaches. Earaches are the most common problem that little ones deal with, but they don't go away when you become an adult. In fact, I've struggled with earaches even in my adult years. And through the power of herbs, I have found a remedy that really works. So today we're going to talk about earaches and what to do if you or someone else in your family develops an earache this year. We're going to learn to make a remedy that will get you feeling better in no time at all. Let's get started. So when it comes to treating earaches, there are 3 ingredients that you need to know, and you need to keep these stocked in your pantry at home all the time. These 3 ingredients start with one you probably already have actually, and that is olive oil, a very simple ingredient most of us use to cook with. And olive oil actually is a great medicinal aid to keep in your home apothecary. So olive oil all by itself, even if we did nothing else, you could warm up a few drops of olive oil and put it in an achy ear, and that alone might be enough to soothe it. When I was a little bitty girl, I can remember my grandmother taking some olive oil and warming it up just a teensy bit to make it nice and soothing and putting it in my ear for an earache, and it helped. So if olive oil is the only ingredient you have, you're already off to a good start. But then I studied herbs and I learned there are some other plants that actually really help with ear pain specifically, and we can add these into our olive oil and make an infusion. And let's talk about those ingredients. The first one might surprise you, and it is simply garlic. Simple garlic. You can purchase organic garlic from your grocery store and use it for this. You do want organic for this purpose. But garlic is antimicrobial, it's antibiotic, it's antiviral. Garlic is anti-everything, even anti-vampires, some say. But garlic will absolutely treat an ear infection. You can basically chop this up really fine, and then you're going to infuse it into the olive oil, and that's the first ingredient. And so the garlic is coming in to swoop in and battle any bad bacteria that are actually the root cause of the earache. The olive oil soothes the pain just because it's warm and it coats the inner membranes of the ear, but the garlic actually comes in and fights the bad bacteria that could be causing the issue. Then we have another ingredient, and this one is really the secret sauce to my earache remedy. That is mullein. So mullein is a plant that you can forage across most of America. It grows on sort of like the edges of forest. You'll find it on the edges of roadways. We have spotted it while traveling, just going down the road, and it grows into like this big, tall stalk. The leaves of mullein are really soft and fuzzy, and a lot of people call it cowboy toilet paper because in the old days they would use mullein as toilet paper because it's so soft. So, little trick, if you're ever camping in the woods and you run out of toilet paper, look for mullein. But mullein is also a medicinal superstar, and you may have heard me talk about this one before. It is one of the main ingredients that I use when I make flu balm tea that treats cold and flu and any sort of respiratory junk that you might get. And so mullein is an expectorant, and it brings up the mucus, it brings it up out of the body and gets it out. Now you can use mullein leaf, you can use mullein flower. Typically mullein leaf is what you reach for respiratory things, and mullein flower is what you would reach for pain. However, I have found that mullein leaf works pretty well for earache remedies, and that's what I use instead of mullein flower. So we're going to use some dried mullein leaf. This is freeze-dried mullein leaf. You can grab some mullein leaf in our shop. I'll link it for you if you don't have mullein accessible to you. I know it's winter time and it's hard to forage right now, but you can grab a bag of mullein to make this. And the mullein is actually going to cause the swelling in the ear to go down. And so, you know, when you have an earache, a lot of times the pain is coming because everything's really inflamed in there. And the mullein calms down the swelling, the olive oil soothes the aching, and the garlic goes to work to fight the bad bacteria that's making all this happen in the first place. So you can see it's a pretty well-rounded little remedy. But here's the thing, we're gonna make this together, but before we do, this remedy is not right for everyone. There are some safety precautions. So you should not use a Mullein earache oil if you have a ruptured eardrum. You should not use this if you have an earache that is accompanied by any sort of discharge or fluid coming out of your ear that is abnormal. You need to see a doctor at that point. This is going to be great for swimmer's ear, for just a typical everyday baby wakes up in the night, their ear hurts. You could try this as a first stop. The way we use it in my house, and this is not medical advice, this is just mom to mom telling you what I do. The way I use it in my house is if anybody gets an earache, we will start with the ear drops, and we'll do 3 to 5 drops in whichever ear hurts, and we'll do it 3 to 4 times a day. I have never used Mullein drops in an ear for more than 2 days. And I have never used Mullein drops in our ears and then later had to go to the doctor and get a further antibiotic or another kind of ear drops. There have even been studies done on this that compared a Mullein garlic ear oil with a prescription ear drop for pain relief. And guess which one won? The Mullein oil was as effective or more effective for the people in that study than the prescription stuff. So this is proven. You can look this up. It is a very well-established remedy. And so let's make it together. You are going to need a pot and some water and a double boiler of some kind. And then we're going to brew our oil. And this is the quick method. So when you make it this way, you can literally make it today and use it today. Because when somebody's got an earache, you do not have time to wait hours for a remedy. So let's mix this up real quick together. Okay, the first step is you are going to need a pot of water, and you're going to need to put it on the stove or on an electric burner, however you like to do your things. And then you need a double boiler, okay? We never want to expose our herbs to direct heat. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little pot and put it over our pot of boiling water. And the water underneath is going to heat up what's in this pot without directly heating our herbs. And this is going to preserve as much medicinal value as we possibly can. And I've got my burner on kind of medium high, warming up. So to the pot, we're gonna start with our olive oil, and we're going to gently heat this up. And we're going to infuse the garlic and the mullein into this oil. So next step is we're going to add our garlic. Now you want to add as much surface area of your garlic to the oil as you can for the best infusion. What I mean by that is you don't want to just take your cloves and plop them in there whole. Instead, you want to chop these up really fine or mince them up, or you can use one of these little tools. I got this little tool from Pampered Chef years ago, and it makes it so simple to mince garlic, and that's the best way to get it broken down really, really fine so it will infuse quickly. So we're going to place our cloves one at a time in here, and then we're going to squeeze it into our oil, just like this. And as you squeeze, you can see the garlic comes through, just like that. And then you can take a finger and knock it off. And we're going to repeat that process, and we're going to do 3 cloves of garlic into our oil. And I used about a cup of olive oil for this. So let's get all our garlic minced, and then we'll go to the next step. Now we'll give that just a little bit of a stir and let it start to infuse in the oil. And now we're going to add our mullein. And mullein, remember, is what brings the magic to this remedy. So mullein is what is really going to soothe so much of the pain with the earache. So I like to use, for a cup of oil, I'm going to use about a 1/4 cup of dried mullein. And we're just going to put it right in our oil, just like that. Now, if you buy a bag of mullein in our shop, it's going to come with 2 cups of mullein, which means that you could really make 4 bottles of earache remedy from it, or you could use some of it in a tea or a tincture or something else. But if you look in here close, you'll see that the mullein leaves and the garlic are just going to continue to kind of melt down into that olive oil. And we're going to keep this going until the water underneath comes to a full simmer. So we're going to let this simmer for half an hour, and then I'm going to bring you back and we'll strain it out and I'll show you the next step. Our oil has been simmering for about half an hour. It's looking really good. So let's go to the next step. And the next part is so simple. We've already done the hard work. So now all we've got to do is we need to strain the oil. We want to get all of the mullein and all of the garlic out of the oil, and all of the medicinal properties are now going to live in the olive oil because they have infused. So you're going to need something to strain it. I like to use just a mesh strainer like this. But mullein has these teensy tiny little hairs on the leaves. And if you are super sensitive and your skin is sensitive, you might even want to run this through cheesecloth. Personally, I don't really find that it bothers us, so I just use a strainer, but cheesecloth is an option too if you want kind of a cleaner finished product. So we're going to put our strainer over a glass bowl, just like this. And then we're going to pour our warm oil with the mullein and garlic through the strainer. So we're just going to gently pour it in like this. And then you want to take a spoon and just really work these herbs and get all of the oil out that you can, because every little bit adds more medicinal power to this remedy. So just keep working your herbs until you get them as dry as you possibly can. Here is our strained mullein oil, and if you look closely, you're going to see the little tiny bits of mullein that I was talking about. So if we ran it through cheesecloth, we would get those last little bits, but honestly, I don't mind them. I think it just adds to the medicinal value of it. So we're going to pour it into a measuring cup just to make it a little easier to bottle up. So we'll just dump that right on in. And then I like to store all of my remedies like this in little dropper bottles. The amber colored dropper bottles do a really good job at keeping this longer. So it blocks out light and it just helps it last a bit longer. We're going to store this remedy in the refrigerator just to keep it safe, and you want to use this up within about 2 weeks. So you want to make small batches. That's why I only used a cup of oil. That will be enough for me to make 2 or 3 bottles of this to deliver to 2 or 3 moms that have littles with earaches this week. This is one I always make fresh when someone needs it instead of keeping it on the shelf, because it just doesn't last quite as long. So to fill your little dropper bottle, it helps so much if you have a tiny funnel. And most little dropper bottles come with one of these, but I can link some for you in the description. So when you make your mullein garlic ear oil, you can use the same kind of bottles I'm using. So we're going to just pour this in, and you want to go real slow. Just like this. And I have found if you kind of lift that funnel up a tiny bit, it just goes in a little better. Woo. We almost overfilled it. Let's dump a little bit out because we got to have room to put our dropper in there. There we go. Perfect. Okay, and then you're going to add your little dropper. And now when it's time to use this, here's what we're going to do. You're going to store it in the refrigerator, but you want to warm it up. You don't want to put cold oil in an achy ear. So you're going to rub it between your hands. You could stick it down in your shirt and walk around with it for a few minutes, but you got to warm it up, okay? And once it's warm, you're going to do 3 to 5 drops in the ear that hurts. And just continue using until your ear feels better. If after 48 hours of using this oil, your ear still hurts, you need to go see a doctor. Get it checked out. Make sure you don't have something, deeper going on, like a deep inner ear infection that needs something heftier. But this will save a lot of mamas from a lot of unnecessary trips to the doctor's office, and it's so simple to make. So garlic mullein ear oil. Make some today so you'll have it on hand for your little ones if they have an earache, or keep the recipe on hand for when you need it. And don't forget, you can grab a bag of mullein in my shop. It's linked down below. And while we're speaking of the shop, just a quick announcement. So this Friday is the final day that you can put an order in with guaranteed Christmas delivery. And we have been selling out of stuff like crazy, but we've got most of our blends fully stocked to get us through. So get your Christmas orders in, and I would love to send you some goodies for Christmas. And yeah, make some oil, lean on the old ways, and you'll never be sorry. God bless you, friends.